Hello, my name is Anthony Shivkumar, and in this video I want to talk about how I plan to learn the piano this time around. Now I have learned the piano, or rather been gone for training 20 years ago, and at that point in time I really did not learn the piano, at least not in a practical sense. Sure, I could read a little bit of the music scores, mostly the right hand, and I would remember these mnemonics like EGBDF and FAC, left hand, I have forgotten. And one of the things that I made in the past, the mistakes that I made in the past, I don't want to repeat them this time around. Now, why am I trying to learn the piano once again? That would be a video that I would do some other time. But in this video, I want to talk about how I plan to practice and keep at it. So the first thing that I didn't have at that point in time is having fun. Now, one of the reasons why I did not have fun was because it felt like I was studying for an exam. I did do, I think, music theory 1 and 2 the theory exams. And yeah, it just felt like I had like these classes that I had to go to. It did not seem like I was having a lot of fun. And I had to practice at a very specific time. And there were a lot of people, my mom and my parents would tell me, like practice. Then the teacher would tell me to practice. It wasn't coming from me naturally. It was more like an external force, and me being a contrarian by nature was repelling that, because I like to do things on my own terms rather than someone telling me what to do. So it wasn't fun in that sense. So this time I am learning it by myself because I want to do it. So hopefully it will be fun. Having said that, the first thing that I want to really be good at, that I wasn't good at when I did it 20 years ago, is be good at reading sheet music. Now, this might sound like practice will make you better, but the way I was learning sheet music back then, we would learn the treble clef for the right hand, mostly, with these mnemonics like EGBDF and FACE, and the left hand would have its own mnemonics. And me being a person who is very bad at memorization, and learning these mnemonics is not the best way for me to learn. Because for me, every time I saw a note on this music score, my brain would interpret, is this an E, is this a G, and then I would be playing something of this sort. It would be very monotonic. It didn't have any rhythm because I was my brain was just focused on processing the notes rather than enjoying the music. And this time around, I want to be diligent about looking at the patterns. So I just want to remember a few reference keys, like maybe a C, maybe a G, maybe an F. And looking at those 3 reference keys, any other note, I'm going to basically try to see the pattern, whether it's 1 key below or 1 key above, based on those reference notes. So I just need to remember 3 reference notes, that's the C, G, and F. And then every other note would be in between one of those reference notes, and I can think of it as going down the keyboard or the piano or up the piano, and looking at the pattern. So instead of remembering the mnemonics, for me it's important that I look at the pattern, because for me pattern is something I think I am better at, and that's one thing that I want to start to cultivate. The second thing when it comes to sheet music is looking at intervals. So for example, if there's a C and then there is an F, and I know there's like 2 white notes in between, that's a pattern, and I can see that in a music score, and accordingly position my hands accordingly to know, okay, that's a second interval, or that's a third interval, or a fifth interval. Again, it goes back to reading patterns rather than reading the mnemonics and constantly processing what is at each individual note. And I generally feel like I've already been practicing this a little bit, and I'm already starting to see the benefits of looking at the pattern, whether it's going up or down, the intervals, rather than looking at each key as it is. Which brings me to the third point, and including key signature, which also brings me to an additional point, which is I'm not really going to focus on the rhythm, because I firmly believe that I'm naturally, like, I know when I'm playing an off note, I can understand the music, I can understand the rhythm, but if I play the wrong note, I played the wrong note. Like, I can't naturally figure out if this is an F, or is this a D, or is this a D, or is this a G. Like, I can't recognize an individual note the other way around, but I can definitely recognize a rhythm or a melody. And that's important. So for me, naturally, I can figure out the rhythm. So I don't have to look at the music score and constantly look at it. I'm playing 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, 4 beats. I believe that will come naturally. My goal is to just look at the pattern and play the right keys. Which brings me to the second point. Practice playing with both hands. The first time when I was working on this, I generally was much better in my right hand compared to my left hand, and that's just because it's easier because of the mnemonic system. It's easier to read the right hand, so you become stronger at the right hand and you're very weak at the left hand. That's one thing I don't want to do this time around. This time around, I want to be starting to play both hands at the same time for whatever be it, because the more I practice with both hands, I'm building that muscle memory right from the get-go, and that's a deliberate way of practicing that I really want to inculcate this time around. The third point is I want to practice slowly. It's okay if I make mistakes, as I said, because if I practice slowly, I feel the speed will come naturally. I don't need to force the speed, but I want to practice slowly, and it's okay if I take my time, even if it's a simple note, and if it's taking me a week to figure it out, that's fine. I'm going to hope for the fact that the more I practice, the speed is automatically naturally going to come. It's similar to like typewriting, right? You look at the keyboard and now you know which letter it is. In the beginning, it's like, or driving, you're figuring out what's happening, and then over time, the speed will automatically come and it just becomes natural. So slowly is the way I'm going to go, and I just want to make sure that, which brings me to the fourth point, which is practice without making mistakes. Because if I'm playing slowly, I probably will make lesser mistakes. And the more I practice, the lesser mistakes I make. But if I'm practicing with making mistakes while I'm practicing, then as I practice, I'm just going to build on those mistakes, and I'm just going to build bad habits, and that won't really help me improve. So it's all about looking at the sticking points. At the beginner level, you generally might grow very quickly, but once you reach the intermediate level, then it starts to get a little tough. And those are the kind of things that really matter, is how you're practicing. Are you making the least amount of mistakes? Are you practicing slowly? So inculcating these habits right from day one would just be better off. The next thing that I want to be good at which brings me to the fifth point, and it's also very important in terms of getting back to pattern reading, is the spatial understanding of the keyboard. Like, I would want to know where is, this F. Like, even if I don't look at it, I want to feel the sense of, okay, I'm playing an F, I'm playing a G. So it's not like I'm associating a finger with the key, but I'm associating the spatial distance, and I would know, where my letter is based on the distance. It's very similar to typewriting. You know where the letters are in the keyboard, and you press that F or a W, you know where it is. And it happens just over practice. It's the same thing that I want to be really good at, is the spatial understanding, so that I can just look at the music score and then play it directly, rather than constantly looking, am I pressing the F properly, or if I'm pressing the D properly. That spatial understanding should help me automatically figure out, okay, that's an F, that feels like an F, that feels like a D. It's just the feeling of where is my hand in respect to the piano itself, and that will come over time. Spatial understanding. The sixth point that I really want to focus on this time is basically try to practice every day, which is important. I don't want to force myself to, I'm going to allocate, every day between 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'm going to practice. I don't think that's going to be very maintainable, and it may not even work in the long run, because that's a pressure that I don't want, and it may beat having fun. For me, it's more like I just want to practice maybe 1-2 minutes every day, just to keep the barrier to entry really low. And that would be awesome, because generally when I start to practice between 1 and 2 minutes, I'm practicing for 15 minutes and 20 minutes just because I've got into the momentum. But if I kept that in my mental brain, I want to practice for 1 hour, then it becomes very stressful. And I don't necessarily have 1 hour of a day to practice continuously, but I can chunk it up, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And it generally turns up, me practicing for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that happens throughout the day. So, but I need to do it every day regularly. So it's more like, don't break the chain rule is more important than how long I practice. It's the consistency of practicing every day that matters. Which brings me to the seventh point. Just because I'm practicing, it also depends what you're practicing. If I'm trying to play a Mozart or a Beethoven right at from day one when my level is like beginner, it's just not going to work. So it's important for me to be cognizant of whether the notes that I'm playing is at the level that I am or slightly above the level I am, so that I'm pushing myself a little harder each day. There's no point going too advanced. It's pretty much like a game. If you're in level 1 of a video game and suddenly you jump to level 10, you're just going to get destroyed, because it's just going to be overwhelming, and you don't have the skill set and the motor skills and the functionality and even understanding the game to play at that level. And that's the reason why these level 1, level 2, level 3 has get increasingly tougher. You could probably jump from level 1 to level 3, but jumping from level 1 to level 10 or even the highest level, you're just going to get destroyed. And the same thing as a pianist, kind of like gamifying it, is to play at a level that I am at. And one of the things that I found out that I remember even when I was playing 20 years ago is that it's very difficult to find notes at your level. Sure, for absolute beginners, there are a lot of resources. Then you get into the intermediate, there is little resources, and then you get into the advanced, and then you get to the super advanced, it's like playing, all the classical music. But in between those each transitions, it's going to be difficult for you to find the music that is at your level. And that's something that I want to be cognizant about, is to make sure that I'm constantly finding music at my level. And how do I know whether it's at my level? At least right now, the way I'm looking at it, the amount of pieces that I can play simultaneously. So if you look at a beginner notes, you'll realize that there's just like, one hand is playing one note and the left hand is playing one note, and you're just playing very like few keys at the same time. But as you get into the more advanced stuff, you'll realize you'll be grabbing a lot more keys at the all your 10 fingers will be activated, because you're playing a Beethoven or whatever, be it, like you're activating all 10 fingers. So I want to be cognizant of like how many keys that I can grab at a point in time. That should give me a level of where my progress level is at. Okay, I can grab like 3 keys in my left hand and 4 keys at my right hand, and then I can play 5 keys in my left hand at the same time and 5 keys at my. It all depends on how you're like, or the speed at which you're able to grab all the notes and play a diverse set of notes. That all matters, and also where exactly in the keyboard it is or in the piano it is. All that matters. So just by looking at the music score and getting a sense of where the keys are and how many fingers are activated when you're playing those notes, are you at that level? And if I'm not at that level, there's no point attempting to it, because I've not developed the foundations of the spatial understanding, the sound, how my fingers should be positioned, and the placements. All of those basics you need to be on point before you can attempt something that's that requires a lot more activation of all your fingers. The next thing that I might actually look at, which brings me back to point number 8, is getting a music teacher. Now, when I say music teacher, it's not that I want to do what I did like 20 years ago, in the sense of maybe Sunday evening at 3 o'clock I have a class. Sure, maybe after 1 year of sticking to it, I might actually think of private tutoring, but I'm thinking more about video exchange. For example, if I'm playing the piano, I wouldn't mind recording the way I'm playing, and basically recording the way I'm playing, and then from there share it with the music teacher, and they can critique me, and it could be anywhere around the globe, and then they can critique when my hand position is it right or is it wrong, whatever be it, and then from there I can get that feedback and improve. So it's more like a video exchange program, doing things in my own time, but at the same time having someone kind of guide me. It's not as good as having a private tutor, but it's definitely in between having a private tutor with that level of rigidity and accountability, and me just wandering around and repeating the same mistakes again and again without much critic. So I might look into investing in something of that sort. I haven't done that yet, but I'm thinking, and it's definitely on top of my mind, because I want to be good at playing the piano. And this brings me to the last point, which is I am going to focus on taking a curriculum, for example, either using Udemy or LinkedIn Learning or other music online websites that's out there, to just take a course and just be more systematic about it, rather than just going online and looking at a music score and then printing it out and playing randomly. Having some form of structure is not a bad thing, and I don't mind it. Sometimes I don't like structure, and sometimes a structure would actually help me, even though I may not necessarily like it. And in this case, structure does help, because you want to play the notes that are at your level. And if someone has done that research, I'm just gonna, follow that. I don't want to invent the wheel and search, whether is that at my level or is it not at my level. And it's good to have, some form of structure of saying this note, so play this music and play this music, because we're transitioning slowly from from beginner to a little bit more advanced beginner to intermediate and advanced intermediate. So that transition would be there in a structure, and that's something that would be important. All right, so let's recap. So there's 9 points that I really want to emphasize when I'm practicing this time around. One is become good at speed reading. I'm saying it's become good at music score reading. Understand the patterns rather than looking at the mnemonics. Number 2, practice with both hands from the start. Activate both. It's just going to be better. It's just going to make you a better player faster. Practice slowly. Hopefully, speed will come with time. And practice without making too many mistakes. Like, be cognizant if you're making a mistake, go more slowly, which brings, switch between point 3 and point 4. Get a sense of the spatial location. Again, that comes back to patterns. Understanding where the keys are rather than constantly looking at, this is a D, this is an F. Trust the spatial, develop the spatial understanding of, where the keys are. That would be super helpful. And then practice every day, even if it's 1 to 2 minutes. Practice every day, and just don't break the chain rule. And progress at your level that you are at, right? Do not progress at a level that's, as I said, don't practice a Mozart or Beethoven when you can barely play one key or 2 keys at the same time. So progress incrementally at the level that you are at. Think of looking at a video exchange program where you can have someone critique the way you're playing. If you want to go all in and get a tutor, absolutely go that way. There's always good to have someone help you out. But I'd rather do something in between before I commit completely to having a tutor. And last but not the least, have a structured curriculum, and you can follow that, by getting a course either on Udemy or look at the reviews or go on LinkedIn Learning, or there are many other, websites out there that teaches you piano, and find the one that best suits you. All right. Until next time, take care. My name is Anthony Shivkumar, and I'm signing off.